right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Ethan Bianchi, and I'm here with a very special guest today. He coaches the McClatchy women's water polo team, and he's also recently taken over the swim team as well. Coach Stephen Plescia, everybody. All right, Coach, first off, how are you? How's your family with the pandemic?
Great. Doing the best you can.
That's good to hear. Starting off, you're coming off a successful season in both swimming and water polo. What can you say about the successes of your team?
Well, I've only been coaching swimming for 2 years, so the success is mostly just that we have, great athletes, and we're also fortunate to be in a league that, it doesn't hurt that we have great athletes. Water polo, pretty successful, so pretty proud of them.
What's your experience like coaching both of these teams? Is it different from just taking over one? How is that for you?
Well, coaching water polo, I've been doing that for a long time. I actually grew up as a swimmer, but I never really was interested in coaching swimming. I feel like swimming is more of an independent sport. I've grown to like it a little bit more. But the difference is, we call it a swim team. I like the team component of sports like basketball and water polo and baseball and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And swimming doesn't really have that except for during the relays. And I think that, ultimately I prefer water polo because of that team aspect where you really have to work together as a group, both in practice and in games. Whereas swimming, you do work together in relays, but I think in practice, it's more, you're working together is more motivating people by, if you're in the lane with somebody, rather than goofing around, you're like, hey, let's swim a little harder. That doesn't happen as much, I don't think, in swimming. It's more independent, and you're really kind of driven more by your own personal desire to get better.
Do you try to drive this team mentality into your
I definitely try to drive it. I try to encourage the kids, especially in swimming. It's just easier for me in water polo because there's that dynamic of the team, and you have to be dependent on each other. And I think you can express that better coaching that type of team sport as opposed to swimming. It's more of like a technique, and you're really kind of focused in on that individual's shortcomings or attributes.
You took over the swim team a couple years ago, as you were saying. What led you to take over this program? Can you talk a little bit about how you stepped up to?
Well, for swimming, it was just more of a need. There was really nobody there to do the job. I have an assistant coach who was on the swim team. I actually coached her as a water polo player when she was in high school. But if she had the time, I would step aside and let her coach. She's definitely swimming focused. Great coach, great person. So it's mostly I filled the role for need, and also because I'm the water polo coach. I'm at the pool. I'm around there, and it's all aquatic space. And I used to be years ago. Before they went to restore the roar boosters, it all used to be sort of aquatics, and so swim team, water polo, we all kind of were somewhat of a little bit of a family. And I think the other reason, I'm digressing a little bit, a lot of the kids I coach for water polo are also swimmers, and to play water polo you really do need to be a decent swimmer, ideally a great swimmer. And so one other thing was that my underlying motivation might have been a little bit of like, well, if I can get my water polo kids to be at swim practice and work on their swimming, it's going to benefit me as a water polo coach as well. So that's a little bit of a sneaky
You're working at it.
reason for me wanting to coach swimming.
Do you try to encourage the swimming kids to come play water polo?
I try to encourage everybody to come play water polo. I'd be hitting you up to come play water polo if if you weren't graduating and our water polo season wasn't in a little bit of a question this year.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts about the new CIF scheduling, and what do you miss most about being around your teams?
Well, mostly I just miss the kids. I miss, working with them and, kind of working towards a goal and being out there on the deck. And, we'd be playing games pretty soon right now. So yeah, I've mostly just missed the actual games and coaching and working up towards all that.
All right. So you talked about it a little bit. You swam as a kid. You didn't play water polo though. What led you to coaching? And
Coaching sports in general, or water polo specifically?
specifically water polo, but just also in general.
Well, so I didn't play water polo officially, but I have, I played some, I never was, when I grew up, I lived on the East Coast, and the towns I lived in at the time, there really wasn't any water polo. But later in life, I had an opportunity to play a little bit here and there with some, kind of sporadic pickup kind of stuff. But mostly because my kids started playing. And that kind of led me to really be interested in the sport. And then ultimately, I just wanted to be around it, and kind of picked up I did some assistant coaching. And then ultimately, the opportunity came up to be a head coach. So I stepped from the assistant coach to the head coach position, and, kept on going. But I love the game. And I think the game is, especially both my kids, my son and my daughter, played at McClatchy. My son was the first one, but my daughter started younger, and the opportunities for girls in water polo, I really liked. I liked the empowerment that it gave, especially girls. And so that kind of was part of my motivation.
Did you ever get the chance to actually coach your kids, or was it just?
I did. I coached my daughter. I was fortunate enough. I actually coached my son's team as an assistant coach 1 year. And then I coached my daughter's team. Actually, all 4 years, I was the assistant coach, for 2 different coaches. But
what was that experience?
I coach a lot of club as well. And so I coached at the club that my daughter and my son played at, but I never actually had to coach my daughter's team. I was always on a different team, which I kind of like that. I didn't always want to be her coach so much as I just wanted to be involved in the sport.
I was going to say, what was your experience like coaching your kids? Because I know some coaches have told me it's like a weird dynamic.
It was a little bit of a weird dynamic, but not really. She was a pretty good player, and she kind of, and that was the reason for being the assistant coach, so that I wasn't directly responsible for like coaching her. I didn't really like coaching. I coached some soccer when I was younger, and my son played, and I didn't really like it. I like soccer. I didn't really like coaching him, just because it just, if things didn't go right, I don't know. Some guys can do that. I don't know. I just wasn't very good at coaching my own kids. I didn't want to push them too hard. I didn't want to be look like I was playing favorites. So, I think we both suffered, my kids and me, for
You talked a little bit about coaching for club teams. I saw that you're the coach for American River Water Polo. How is that experience different for you than coaching at McClatchy?
Coaching in club, you have kids that are specifically, that their goal, or it's all about water polo. They're playing year-round water polo. They're looking to either, play in college or just play on the ODP level or what have you. Whereas our high school program, I get a few club kids, and I have over the years tried to, generate the interest so that the kids will play, not so much because I want them to play club, but because I would like, if they played club, they would be better water polo players for high school. And so I've been trying over the years to, bring mostly our land park kids into the club, and then per se into McClatchy. Unfortunately, a lot of the kids that I've coached, from the 8 and under age up, they end up going to Christian Brothers or St. Francis or Jesuit, which is unfortunate. But we have had a few club kids, and the difference is that club kids are, all about water polo. The high school kids that I get, sometimes they're brand new, and they're just starting in 9th grade, and that's a lot to learn. It's a complicated sport, and if you're just playing the high school season, 3 months out of the year, it's going to be really difficult to get to that higher skill level. Mm-hmm. That's the club component. It's fun to coach those skilled athletes that are all about water polo and are doing all the things they need to do to be better at water polo. But it's also fun to coach those high school kids that just are learning the game, and they fall in love with it or whatever. And so they both have their pluses.
They have different levels and
Yeah, I
different
mean,
aspects.
club can be a little bit more competitive, and it's a little bit more like, the drive there is like, okay, I've got a really, high level team and we can really do some damage. Whereas same idea in high school, but we got to do a little bit more work because we might not have the, raw skill set because of the lack of playing.
What led you were talking about a little bit about how you're from the East Coast. What led you to come to Sacramento and choose McClatchy as a coach?
Well, I moved out here because I came out here years ago, lived in San Francisco for quite a while, and I met my wife there, and she's actually from Sacramento. So what brought me to Sacramento was my wife's family ties. And it's a pretty great place to be. I mean, recently with the smoke and all that, but for the past 20 years for me, it's been a fantastic place to live. McClatchy, I live in Curtis Park. My kids went to McClatchy, so that's the connection there. And I like public schools. I work for the public school system, so besides coaching.
Where do you work for the public schools?
I'm a substitute teacher for Sac City, so I work for.
You talked a little bit about how you had some connections to soccer, I think basketball as well. How do you think these sports are similar, being team sports, to water polo?
The ideas, the strategies behind in basketball and in water polo, move the ball, move the defense, and in soccer, the same type of principles. They're basically the same. The ultimate goal in the end is slightly, it's a little bit different. And water polo, being in the water, really changes a lot of things, but the ideas and the strategies are pretty similar. And attacking down the pool is a lot like attacking down the field in soccer. The only difference in soccer is that you've got people that stay back on defense more. In water polo, it's more like basketball in the sense that everybody except for the goalie is involved in both offense and defense all the time, and they have to be. And then it has those hockey components, which I'm not a hockey player, but I did grow up around some hockey players. You got that penalty, so you got that man up situation where you have that kind of power play, and you got to be good at that in order to be successful. So my basketball experience, which I played a lot of basketball growing up and also coached a fair amount of basketball, that really helped me with water polo, because that understanding of how to move, how to move the defense, how to attack the defense, how to move the ball, kind of really was helpful.
So you try to bring these principles of movement.
I love basketball. I think basketball is the greatest game on land. I think water polo is the greatest game on the water. So I think the two of them together, if you could play both those things all, year round, you'd be set.
There you go. What values or principles do you try to teach to your kids as a coach?
Oh, I think, just the same basic values that everybody tries to teach us, like teamwork, cooperation, team before self, a lot of being unselfish. And then, basically just, let's be good people. We'll work together, try to achieve a common goal.
Do you think water polo helps your athletes learn different skills like time management?
I do. I think all sports. I think all sports do that. I mean, I think that basically sports are a great way for people to learn how to, manage time, but work together. All those kind of basic things that we're trying to teach in school, not math so much.
Yeah. I've heard some interesting answers to this one from other coaches. Do you have any new interests or hobbies that you've picked up during the
pickleball? I've been playing pickleball since only for about a month now, but I wish I'd have figured it out earlier, because it's super fun. It's slow. It slows down a little bit, but then you do have a lot of little fast volley stuff around the net. I've been playing mostly doubles. I would, to give you the sort of camaraderie of working with other people. Whereas that singles game is more like regular tennis, where you're just trying to move people around the court. But super fun. I recommend it.
All right. Do you play at Curtis Park or somewhere else?
I played at Curtis Park. There's a whole group of guys that I've been playing with for the past 20 years. And as this pandemic has kind of thrown the wrench in that. And so all of a sudden I got a text from one of the guys. I was like, hey, we're playing pickleball, and if you're interested, come on out. And so I went out and gave it a try. But I've been playing with these guys that I play basketball with, so it's a lot of fun.
All right, I think it's the time for your quote, your words of wisdom. What do you have for us, Coach?
I'm going to say it's a great day to be a Lion. I really don't have a quote. I mean,
Okay.
you know,
That's a solid one.
Well, the other quote would be, if you haven't played water polo, come out and give it a try.
Give it a try. Okay. Hopefully we can get you a couple new players with this. Thank you to Coach Steve for coming on, talking with us a little bit about water polo, swimming, life, pickleball. I had a great time. Hopefully you did as well. And yeah, thank you, Coach, for coming on. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, come back next week, everybody, for the next interview. Thank you.